That night is burned into my memory in a way I never expected. Not because of what I saw first, but because of what I chose to do after. I had always believed I knew myself. I believed I knew my limits, my values, the invisible lines I would never cross. But life has a way of testing you when you're tired, lonely, and least prepared to say no. My husband and I had been drifting for a long time before that moment. Not fighting, not shouting, just slowly fading. We still shared the same house, the same routines, the same polite conversations over dinner. But the warmth was gone. The laughter that once filled the room had been replaced by silence and glowing phone screens. I told myself this was normal. That marriages go through phases. That love doesn't always feel loud. That's when his best friends started coming around more often. He'd been part of our lives for years. Barbecues, birthdays, late-night conversations that stretched longer than they should have. He was familiar. Safe. Or at least that's what I thought. He was the kind of man who listened when people spoke, who remembered small details, who made you feel seen without trying too hard. I never noticed how much attention he paid to me until I did. That evening my husband was working late again. I remember feeling irritated, then guilty for feeling irritated. I stayed up longer than usual, wandering through the house with no real purpose, pretending I wasn't waiting for something. Or someone. When I heard movement in the guest room, I froze. I hadn't realized he was staying over that night. I hesitated before walking down the hallway. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe just confirmation that I was still alone. But when I pushed the door open slightly, I saw him sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, his shoulders tense like he was carrying something heavy. Hooked, broken. Vulnerable in a way I had never seen before. I should have walked away. Instead I knocked. He looked up, startled, then embarrassed, as if he'd been caught doing something he shouldn't, even though all he was doing was existing in his pain. He tried to smile it off, said he was fine, said it was nothing. But I could hear it in his voice. That quiet crack people get when they're barely holding it together. I stepped inside. I told myself it was just concern. Just kindness. Just being human. We talked. About small things at first. About how strange life feels when it doesn't turn out the way you imagined. About the pressure of expectations, about loneliness that sneaks in even when you're surrounded by people. I shared more than I meant to. He listened more than anyone had in a long time. And somewhere between one confession and the next, the space between us changed. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, dangerous, slow. I noticed how close he was sitting. How his eyes lingered when I spoke. How my heart beat faster for no reason that made sense. I remember thinking, this is wrong. I remember thinking I should leave now. And I remember not moving. When he reached out, it wasn't bold. It was tentative. A hand brushing mine as if asking a question without words. I could have pulled away. I should have. Instead I stayed still, and that silence became an answer. What followed wasn't wild or reckless like people imagine infidelity to be. It was quiet. Heavy. Loaded with meaning neither of us wanted to name. We crossed a line not because we didn't know it was there, but because stepping back suddenly felt harder than stepping forward. Afterward, reality rushed in like cold air through an open window. I stood up first. My chest felt tight. My thoughts were racing faster than I could control. He looked at me with something close to regret, and something else I didn't want to recognize. We didn't talk about what it meant. We didn't promise anything. We didn't need to. The silence said enough. I barely slept that night. The guilt came in waves. Every sound in the house made me flinch. Every thought of my husband felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. I told myself it was a mistake. A one-time lapse. A moment of weakness fueled by emotional neglect and poor boundaries. I swore to myself it would never happen again. But secrets have a way of growing. The next morning nothing looked different, but everything felt wrong. My husband kissed my cheek like he always did. Asked me about breakfast. Complained about traffic. And I nodded along, smiling when I was supposed to, wondering how people carry on so easily after their world shifts. His best friend avoided me for days. When our eyes did meet, there was tension there. Unspoken words. Questions neither of us dared to ask. I thought distance would fix it. That time would dull the memory. I was wrong. Eventually we talked again. Briefly at first. Careful conversations that stayed on the surface. But the pull was still there. Stronger maybe because now it had history. Meaning. Consequences. Every interaction felt like standing too close to the edge of something dangerous. I started questioning myself in ways I never had before. Was I unhappy or just bored? Was this about desire or about finally feeling chosen? I didn't like the answers forming in my mind. They didn't fit the person I believed myself to be. What finally stopped it wasn't discovery. It wasn't confrontation. It was exhaustion. One afternoon, I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked distracted, tired, divided, living two lives and fully present in neither. And for the first time I felt something stronger than desire or guilt. Clarity. I ended it, not with drama, not with blame. Just honesty. I told him we had crossed a line that could only lead to destruction if we kept walking. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. I think part of him was relieved. Sometimes people fall into things they don't actually want to carry. My marriage didn't magically heal after that. Trust doesn't repair itself overnight, especially when one person is carrying a secret the other doesn't know. But I changed. I stopped pretending silence was peace. I started asking hard questions. I started demanding emotional presence instead of settling for routine. I don't tell this story because I'm proud of it. I tell it because it taught me something uncomfortable and necessary. Boundaries don't disappear in one moment. They erode slowly when loneliness goes unchecked and honesty is postponed too long. That night didn't just test my loyalty. It exposed the parts of me I had ignored for years. And while I can't undo what happened, I can say this. Crossing that line showed me exactly where I never want to stand again. Some lessons come quietly. Others come wrapped in regret. But they all leave a mark. And this one changed the way I see myself, my marriage, and the dangerous power of moments we think we can control, until we can't.